Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on social media at Galen Trombley. I hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Please hold for a very important message. Light speed sequence initiated. How may I help you?
Bonjour.
Security breach.
The truth shall set you free. Awesome. It's a miracle.
Stabilize. 3, 2, 1. Mission complete.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode, this is 253 of the Galen Trombley Show. My guest today already thinks I'm crazy, and we told her this is a very low-budget podcast, and I've screwed up like 10 things. We'll get it back on track, I promise. My guest today is Sarah Munn. She is the founder and executive director at Healing Grace Center for Hope and Healing. She was actually a referral to come on. I say referral, request. I don't say referral is weird. A recommendation, I should say. Yeah. A recommendation to come on by a very great person locally, and I kind of did a little bit of background looking at it, and then I said, you know what, sounds interesting. And it's different. I've never had it before. It seems, I think what you're going to talk about is going to be like kind of a heavy subject, but you already seem very light and fun, and based on
Absolutely.
Things, I think you're going to make it good. So for people that do not know you, give us kind of like how'd you get here? Like give us a little background on you.
Sure, no problem. I'm North Country native, graduated in 1994 from Seton, and eventually landed in Kansas City in 2005. And yes, I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan, die hard since then, when they were really bad.
So you're not a bandwagon fan at all?
No.
Okay.
Taylor Swift had no influence on my fandom.
That's good. That's good.
So I'm gonna give you the kind of the long short version. So ended up in Kansas City, married, lived out in Kansas City for about 5 years, and during our tenure out there, ended up getting pregnant with our first child in 2008, and ended up going to our ultrasound at 20 weeks, expecting to find out that our daughter, or find out if we were having a girl or a boy, basically. Mm-hmm. Did not have any anticipation that anything could be going wrong. Had that mindset that you make it through your first trimester and then you're going to have a baby. So in 2000, and then on August 7th, we had that ultrasound and found out that the baby had a neural tube defect, which was anencephaly, in which the skull does not form. So therefore, the brain does not form. And it's a life-limiting diagnosis. The prognosis is there's really no chance of survival. We chose to carry her to term through the guidance of our provider out there, and with the support of an organization called Alexandra's House. Alexandra's House was founded in 1997 by an aunt who had lost her niece after 28 days, and that was the key to our making it through from day one until she was born on December 2nd. That organization connected us with other families that had lost pregnancies, had lost babies, and we developed friendships and connections. And it was really the most important part of our process and getting to Grace's birth on December 2nd. Grace was born December 2nd at 7:56 in the morning. She was born via C-section. So in the operating room, White Christmas by Bing Crosby was being played. And she lived for 5 hours. And I had all my friends, I had family, everybody was able to be a part of Grace's life. And that was really important to me. And so here we are. I don't want to make light of that day, but moving forward, when we continued to have the support of Alexandra's House, we eventually knew that we were going to have another baby, which we did in 2010, February 23rd, 2010. Anastasia was born at 10 pounds and was a walking, talking toddler right out the gate. She's like 3 months old, 3-month-old baby, giving birth to a 3-month-old baby. We knew we wanted to come back to the North Country, so we did in 2010 move back to the North Country. And over the years, I've talked about starting an organization to support families of infant and pregnancy loss. I wanted to start in Alexandra's House, air quotes, Alexandra's House. Mm-hmm. And I would talk about it, never did anything about it. And in 2019, I had shoulder surgery and reconnected. My physical therapist was a girl that I went to high school with. And in the course of rekindling our friendship, she's like, you talk about doing this Alexandra House type thing. Why don't you just do it? And so I did. I just was like, I'm going to do it. And so in 2020, in the heart of a pandemic, I started this nonprofit to support families that have gone through similar losses as I had, just knowing that the best way to find support is connecting with others that have gone through it. So I did. And it was all online at first. And I have no background in starting a business, let alone a nonprofit. I worked in psychiatry for years. So here we are, 2023, going into our fourth year and growing.
So like I said, I have, well, kind of go back a little bit. Like, I think one of the reasons I wanted to have you come on is because obviously this is like it's a heavy subject. I think I've never gone through it. I'll be honest. I have 3 kids. I thank God they're healthy. One of my worst fears, or I would say my worst fear in life is like my children passing before me, which is, and it's not and I try to put it in perspective, and I'm not a overbearing parent, and I'm not, I let them, I want them to do their thing. Right. And it's like anything else. Like, I wouldn't want something to happen to my parents, my siblings, my wife, anything like that. But I remember vividly my first kid was getting ready to be born. And it was so he's born on Christmas Day. So it was probably Grace's birthday, to be honest, right around then. And someone told me, I remember being on the phone, and I was like, oh yeah, we're getting ready to have a kid. And they said, oh yeah, my kid was stillborn, or not my kid, my grandchild was stillborn. And number one, I'm like, oh, never, not that I didn't know that was a thing, but never crossed my mind. Mm-hmm. And I remember vividly hearing that. Number one, I was like, I don't know why that person just told me that. But then at the time too, I was like, I instantly kind of went into this kind of a panic mode of oh my God, there's stuff that can happen. And I know people that have locally that are, friends or, have lost children. I think similar to Grace were born and passed soon after. And, I guess a lot of it is, kind of, it's like a heavy topic for me to talk about because it's almost like facing on a fear, but it's also something that I think is, going to help people if they go through that. And again, whether or not you have a kid, I think someone that is probably going through this because it's, and again, I want you to kind of speak to, whatever, I don't want to say statistics. I feel like that's a bad word, but just kind of what happens and how things happen. And I guess starting from kind of wherever you want to start on this, better than I do. I just kind of open the floor to you because I don't know a lot except that it was always a fear of mine of something happening, and we were very lucky. But I know a lot of people have had miscarriages. I know a lot of people that have, and I would say miscarriages, that counts, right? It's all.
Oh, absolutely.
I say counts, but it's still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, a miscarriage is a loss prior to 20 weeks.
Okay.
Stillbirth would be if the baby dies in utero after 20 weeks, that's a stillbirth. Okay. Okay. And I can't even list the things, when you go into this, you go into having a baby, like I said, there's a naivety of thinking that once you get through that first trimester, which is your biggest risk for miscarriage, that everything is going to be okay. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. There are approximately 21,000 stillbirths a year.
Yeah.
So it's 15 times more prevalent than a baby dying of SIDS, not to make light of that, but it is an extremely prevalent issue. And that's just in the United States. And so looking at all of that, I mean, and there's definitely one of the things that I've learned over the years is that 25% of those stillbirths are actually preventable. So there's actually legislation currently, a bipartisan bill in the House and the Senate to allocate money to improve research and awareness and education awareness, and then reporting on the statistics. Because doing this for 4 years and trying to get grants, you do a lot of research, and there's the reporting is state to state, and it's not consistent. And like reporting a miscarriage, states aren't actually required. Some states don't even have a requirement to report a miscarriage prior to 20 weeks. So it could be even more prevalent. But that being said, with all the things that can go wrong, and you think, I lost my first child, how did I dare go and get pregnant again, when you realize that all of these other things can happen? And the actual fact of the matter is that when you do have that baby, it's such a miracle. You kind of, as a parent, just have to. Well, I have to say that second pregnancy with my daughter Anastasia was the most anxiety-ridden pregnancy that I've could ever imagine having. But that said, the support that I had, I learned early on that I'm going to have this darkness, this grief, this whatever you want to call it, the loss of my daughter is going to be there forever. And how can I continue if I don't have any kind of hope, or if I don't go back to some sort of normalcy, which means trying to get pregnant again, which means having a baby and facing the risk that that baby could too also not survive. And then, it's been 15 years, and over the years, I still have those dark moments in grief and sadness. I mean, her birthday was the 2nd, so it was a few weeks ago, and I spent that day in a lot of sadness, but I also know that I can get to that other side, and I want to be an example for other people for that. And it's a thing that's happened. So one, it's an unfortunate thing that I wish would never happen to anybody. That being said, it's going to happen. So what can we do to be available for our community to support that family when it does happen?
Two questions I want to ask you about it. Are you pretty open about talking about most of this?
I am.
Okay,
I'm
so
really open.
I guess my first question is, when you find out about Grace and you at the 20-week mark, like, what was the reason that you wanted to carry it to full term versus the alternative? And then I guess my second question is, what was the reason? Again, kind of, I'm going to have Anastasia. I want to have my the second child, and then the mindset of like, I'm going to face this head on, and I guess both of those two. I mean, again, it's new to me, and I'm sure a lot of people,
Absolutely. So, I'm going to get into a little detail about the day. So we went into our ultrasound, and we're in the room, and the tech puts the wand on my belly and immediately leaves the room. And I knew right then and there that there was something wrong. My husband was like, "Oh, no." And I'm like, "Something's wrong." And she comes back with the doctor, who again puts the wand on my belly, and less than a minute tells us that, this baby has anencephaly, and it's fatal. And so I threw up. I literally had a physical reaction and threw up in the room, and I screamed out that I wanted it out of my belly. And so how do you get from that to deciding to carry the baby to term? My husband and I actually went in the next day to schedule the termination. My provider at the time did not perform late term terminations. Mm-hmm. And so I went in by myself, scheduled it. So we were diagnosed on a Thursday. I went in on a Friday, scheduled it for the following Tuesday. And so we had several days to sit with this possibility, and, talking to family, talking amongst ourselves, and we had a lot of signs. And my provider had said that if the baby survived to term, there would be no pain. There was really no risk to my health carrying the baby until the baby died. So we just kind of went back and forth with it. And again, there was some signs for us that just kind of indicated that maybe what we were planning, the termination, wasn't really going to be right for us. So we went back to our provider and we canceled we went back to our provider and canceled the termination, went back to my provider, and we decided that we're going to just keep going. I knew that for me, I could potentially regret terminating the pregnancy and not letting it happen naturally. I was never going to regret going to term if she made it to term. And that's not the same decision for everyone. And by no means do I support whatever the family decides. This is such a personal decision, and it was something that took a lot of conversation. We prayed. We went back and forth, and so it's a personal decision for us, and that's what we decided. And so moving forward, we just went with we got connected with an organization that was going to support us to her end, to the birth and to her death, and that was what worked for us. And then leading up to her birth on December 2nd, and then our provider also, she was breech, so our provider gave us the option of doing a C-section, because if Grace would have died in the birthing process had we done it naturally. So we decided to do the C-section, as she was also breech and wasn't moving to get into the birthing position. And so that just it just worked for us. That's what we felt comfortable with. Then afterwards, you go in for your follow-ups with your provider, and I felt like I needed to talk about the future and getting pregnant again. I knew I wanted to have a baby. I knew I wanted to be a mom. I was already a mom, but I wanted to have a baby. Mm-hmm. And I had something to look forward to. So they said, in 6 months you can try getting pregnant again. And actually, 6 months the day we were pregnant again. And it was just something for me to look forward to. Putting aside all of the fear, I just knew that that's what I wanted.
Did that help with the grieving process?
Looking back at it, probably not.
Okay.
I don't think I was completely if I look back at it now, as a young mom, after the death of one baby, and then you have a new baby a year or so afterwards, I didn't really give myself a lot of time for that. But I don't know if I would have changed it either, right? Because now I have this wonderful, almost 14-year-old. I say wonderful. She has her moments, for sure.
Sounds like a teenager. That's all right. Teenager.
Teenager. And so, I think hindsight is 20/20 for sure. Thinking about, going right in at six months and getting pregnant again. But here we are now, and I have been able to kind of get to a point where at least I can recognize that, but just kind of, there's not much I can do about it now. So
When did you name Grace Grace?
So we didn't find out we were having a girl or a boy at that ultrasound. It ended up a woman that I befriended through Alexandra's house. Her son had died a year before Grace, and she was actually friends with the tech that had diagnosed Grace. And so in October of 2008, she took us into her office after hours and did a private ultrasound to tell us that we were having a girl. We got video of Grace moving and just normal, like there was no, like you just knew what you were going into, but we got to see her. We got to see her move. We got to just be with her for, like an hour. And at that point we found out we're having a girl, and we had another name. We had actually Anastasia's name prior to finding out that Grace was not going to survive. And so we were like, well, she needed a different name. Like there was something that needed to be, that was more, I don't know, it just didn't fit. Like just giving her the name Anastasia, we went around about it. And so we named her Grace Ann. And actually Ann in Hebrew means grace. So,
Okay.
So
Yeah.
So anyway, she's a lot of grace. We get a lot of grace. And we just kind of talked about it. It was I don't have a lot of memory around naming her. Because it, you remember certain things. Like I can remember the day we were diagnosed, and then there's times during that period where you're like, how did I even get out of bed?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to work. I was going to work every day. I think I missed a half a day. I left work early once in that, 4 or 5 months. People didn't ask me about her. People didn't ask how I was doing.
They knew about it though?
Yeah, they were instructed not to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, talk about it.
I was going to ask, so you would say to voice, or for others to ask you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, even if somebody has, either if they have a medical diagnosis that the baby's going to die, or there's a health issue that the mom is going to, there's like a health risk to the mom to carry the pregnancy, or they've gone through a miscarriage, or they've had a stillbirth, always talk about the baby. That baby existed in that family's eyes. And so saying nothing is worse than saying the wrong thing sometimes.
What do you think, and again, having you experience this and now over time, having dealt with, families and stuff regarding this, like what's your, like if you could write up a guide, like this is how to treat families going through this, like talk about it. I mean, is it hugs? Is it time? Is it gifts? Is it like, is there, or is it just go get educated on it? I mean, I know it's like weird, but if you said, hey, this is how I look at the best way out of all my research and experience, the best way to go about this.
So first of all, I'm going to preface, like, I'm just a mom, so I don't really have any kind of like education, or this is just an experience thing. This is just like my experience. I've done a lot of reading, obviously, and I've read a lot of books about grief and books about pregnancy loss, and being a person that has gone through it. And I do get asked by, other people, that friends or family that have, friends or family going through that. And I always say, the best thing to say is, I want to acknowledge, it's acknowledgement, it's validating, acknowledging the baby, validating whatever they're going through, and not minimizing. One of the key things is not to say, well, God needed an angel. Well, that's all well and good, but I really would prefer my baby to be in my arms. Like that doesn't comfort me. Or at least you were only such and such weeks. It just invalidates and puts shame on what that person's going through. So if you know somebody that's going through that, it's just being there. I just saying, I don't know what to say to you. I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to support you in the best way that I can, even if it's going to coffee and sitting there in silence. Just knowing that you're acknowledging what they're going through, validating that all they're feeling is okay and right, or, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but everything that they're going through is valid, is the best way to put it. And that you want to help. And then if you want to help, then do something like make a meal or say, hey, I want to take you to coffee. So we don't have to talk. We can just go to coffee. Don't put it on them to ask you for help, because I'm not really good at it. I'm not going to ask you for help. I would rather
deal with it yourself.
I'm going to sit quietly and, but if you see that person and you want to support that person, best thing to do is just tell them how you're going to help. And if that's not something they want, like if they're like, oh, I can't do coffee, okay, then that might open a conversation of what they do want for help.
So having gone through this and now starting, so I guess I want to dive into the what you have going on here with Healing Grace. So because you talked about your friend mentioned it in 2019, you started in 2020. What was ultimately the decision where you're like, you know what, I'm doing it? Like kind of like, because I guess you said, how long before that moment was this in your mind to start? From like day one, 2008, or was this?
Well, at least from like 2010 when I moved back. I mean, I had mentioned it over the years that it would be so great to start this kind of organization. In 2019, when my friend finally, it was May of 2019, where she was like, you should do this. I did go out to, for almost 20 years, I worked for a psychiatrist in Kansas City. And when we moved in 2013, I started working for the company remotely here in the area. And so I was going to Kansas City quite a bit. And I was taking a trip out to Kansas City for work. And I set up a meeting with Patty Lewis, who's the founder and the founding mother of Alexandra's House. And I set up a lunch date. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I wanted to connect with her. And I wanted to talk to her about starting this organization, and expecting going into this conversation where she was going to give me the kind of the technical lowdown on how to start an organization like this and what it is to run a nonprofit. And she did none of that.
Okay.
But what she did say is, if, she did encourage me, and she just asked me to really do some self-reflection and,
Did she try to talk you out of it?
No.
Okay.
No, she didn't try to talk me out of it, but it was more of an encouragement. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but she felt like this was something that was maybe written in the cards for me, but to really kind of self-reflect and do some thought on it. And so I was like, well, I didn't get the information that I thought I was going to get, but I got encouragement, and it was really great to see her and reconnect with her. And I actually get cards, and I get a card from them every December 2nd for Grace's birthday. And so I read a book. It's called The Souls. Oh my gosh, my friend is going to kill me. She wrote it. So my friend of mine, Ani Anderson, wrote a book called Your Soul's Agenda: Finding Your Purpose. I butchered the title.
What's her name?
Ani Anderson. She wrote a book, and it's...
I may have mistyped that.
Ani, A-N-I.
Okay.
Yeah. And there she is.
Okay.
Yeah. Finding Your Soul's Agenda. There you go. Sorry, Ani.
That's all right.
So I read that. I read it 3 times in 2019, and it talks about like getting to your word, and in it, my word is accomplished, and I wanted to feel accomplished, and to me, feeling accomplished is being at peace, and and content and knowing that I was intelligent and able to do things. And so kind of that book really set the ball rolling that I could do something like this. I had never had really a whole lot of self-confidence. And obviously, I was content being in a job that I didn't particularly love and just paying the bills and kind of going through life. And I took an opportunity to challenge myself. And so I got a business coach, Elizabeth Pearl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been on the podcast. She's
Yep.
great.
Elizabeth Pearl. So I'm a Munn. She's a Pearl. We're from Cliff Haven. There's a lot of us. And so
I was going to say, she's a big family, but she's a great lady.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Pearl and I started working together as a business coaching relationship. And she kind of guided me and helped me get to the point where I was submitting the paperwork and becoming an incorporated nonprofit. And it was just, things just kind of happened. It was just like, I'm going to just do it. So I just did it. It was just like, just do it.
Did you jump into it 100%? Or do you still have a job at the time you started this?
I stayed with my job in Kansas City for up until fall of last year.
Oh, so you were working remotely from there?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
So now full time, this is, like you were saying before, this is kind of the whole gig now. So you're, not toes in the water, but like head first, dove in, deep end.
Yeah. I mean, the whole goal of this is to get it to the point where it's sustainable. I'm the only person that works at Healing Grace. So I am program development, program launching. I do the accounting.
Just swap
the
hats out throughout the day?
Right.
Yep.
I clean the toilets. I do it all. I rescue cats in my office, and I have 4 rescue cats. And I do work part-time for the North Country Mission of Hope as their administrative assistant and doing like bookkeeping and things like that for them. But yeah, this is like my full-time gig. The goal is to get to a point where I can pay myself a salary. We're not there yet. It's all funding type stuff. But I'm learning and we're growing exponentially. That first year, I don't know if we raised, $20,000, but like last fiscal year, we raised, $43,000. And this year, I still have a quarter left in my fiscal year and we're at $40,000 raised. So I'm growing it, and it is growing. I thought that I would jump in and like it was gonna just pop, right? I thought, woohoo, I'm starting this, and I have had to really just buckle down and realize that. And I also, one of my board members is my Aunt Michelle Armani, and she taught me, like, Sarah, things aren't just going to pop. Like, you have to work. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a slow go. And so that slow go was like, okay, I'm going to take a step back. It's going to happen when it happens. And here we are. And so Healing Grace is not anything like Alexandra's House, by the way. We are my idea of starting an Alexandra's House, yeah, that was the inspiration, but Healing Grace is very much a different type of organization. We have many programs. We're expanding to full grief work, full grief support. We do all sorts of things. So we do have a Moms of Loss group that meets the second Saturday of the month, but we have expanded to support children of grief, all grief. If they've lost a parent, a grandparent, sibling. We do a program called Bodie's Toadies, and Bodie was a baby. Is in memory of a baby that one of our families had lost at 19 weeks pregnant, and they're children grief totes, and so they have items that are going to comfort those kids when they're going through the initial stages of grief, or at any point if they're struggling from grief. And they have like a coloring book, a blanket, a stuffed animal, a frame, some hot chocolate. They have like coloring pencils and stuff. It's just little items, really simple items that just to let the kids know that they're being supported. We also do a children's grief group. It's a group facilitated by a provider. So we're kind of expanding our reach, and we do a lot of remembrance programs like birth weight stuffed animals, and which are they're stuffed animals. The family picks up the stuffed animal, and we I have a seamstress that volunteers and adjusts the stuffed animal to the weight of the baby. I gave my kids Care Bears last year that were 4 pounds 1 ounce, which was Grace's birth weight, and
That's cool.
yeah, they love it. It's just we do a lot of different things, whereas Alexandra's House is more of a peer-driven, peer group type support system.
So when you say Alexandra's House, that would be like you would offer support to someone who just went through it versus, like I said, Healing Grace is more outreach, but also is it less one-to-one? Is it more like group community feel? Or I guess like what would be the main difference from an Alexandra's House to this?
So Alexandra's House offers a lot of group support. They also, being in Kansas City, there are families that are going to lose babies and like their family rejects them. So they offer like space for them to live. Or sometimes the baby survives longer than anticipated. And so, but the baby's still unlikely to survive. So they'll go to Alexandra's House and able to spend their days with the baby there under in the house itself with Patty. And they do like peer groups and things like that. Healing Grace, we do offer a group. I would love to offer more groups, but we have found the best way to support families is outreach through CVPH, the Women's and Children's Center. We have found support through connecting with the area school districts. You know, I was mentioning Bodie's Toadies. We've given Bodie's Toadies to Momot, Oak Street, Peru Central School District, Beekman Town, Rouse's Point, at NCCS, also Saranac Lake, Lake Placid, Keysville, Morrisonville. So
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could go. The Ted K Center has also gotten part of it, gotten some. So it's so that's, and then like we have the miscarriage kits, which are it's a small gift. Mm-hmm. So a woman gets diagnosed with a miscarriage, either in the ER or through, through their provider's office. We have these little gifts. They're a little stone heart that they can put in their pocket and carry with them. And just a card that says you're not alone. Our stories are different, but we are never alone. That's a big key message for us. And so, that's something that we do. And then we do a thing called Champ boxes. I had mentioned Champ before. And those are boxes that go to the Women's and Children's Center at CVPH. And they're just, there's kind of like some toiletries because often you get diagnosed at a doctor's office, you go right to the hospital, you don't have certain items with you. They also contain a book about pregnancy loss. We have a local, she's a teacher in Saranac, and she does a side business called ABT Designs, A Broke Teacher Designs. And she does a wall hanging, and it just says, "My baby's playing among the stars." Mm-hmm. And we put the baby's name and the date of birth. And we found that just acknowledging and providing these small tokens, I don't want to minimize them, but these tokens, these
they're symbolic and
it's just a way to bring the family support, but in a different way. So we're not sitting maybe doing one-on-one talking or things like that. I would love to get a provider, like a mental health provider in Healing Grace, so that we could offer a little bit more like grief support. Mm-hmm. And that is a goal. I've been working at it for a while, trying to get somebody to come in and do that. And that way we could kind of be full circle. We could be doing these programs, but also provide mental health care, because grief care is like so important. We all, no matter what, we're all going to experience grief. Mm-hmm. Nobody's immune to it unless you want to live under a rock. So
regarding that, because you were, and there's I'm not great with all the science terms, but psychiatry is what you were in, and then like psychological stuff with grief. And was any of that background helpful with just the social aspect, the mental aspect? Because I feel like you say grief, like there's a it's all, I say it's in the mind, but like your mind's experiencing the grief. It's a matter of like, this is kind of like anything in life. If you're going through grief, whether it's a child, a parent, someone that's important to you, like people have different ways of grieving. They have different ways of trying to, live with whatever the new reality is. Do you find, what are the things that like you focused on when you were going through and still do? Like you said, when you have, December 2nd comes around, and I'm sure it's, as wonderful as your organization is, you wish it almost wasn't around.
Absolutely, I'd give it away.
'Cause it's almost like, you want to put yourself out of business, and that's kind of. But the idea, so I guess from a mental standpoint, what do you find the best way? Is it? I mean, you talked about you love laughing until like it hurts, basically. Like, was there humor? Was there, kind of like trying to do positives? Was there just straight up just bawling your eyes out and just really struggling? You said dark days, like all of the above. I mean,
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, grief is not just in the mind. There's a somatic component to grief.
Okay.
And actually, to all of our emotions, right? We can actually. There's actually research out there. Like, we carry a lot of our emotions in our body. I mean, we constantly are feeling it. Like, so one of the things that's helped is doing a lot of awareness about how my body reacts to my emotions. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm stressed out, where do I feel that in my body? Doing a lot of breathing. I breathe a lot. I do a lot of breathing throughout the day. But yeah, for sure, comedy, right? I've always been a fan of like laughing and sitcoms, romantic comedies, any kind of comedy, I'm a big fan of Napoleon Dynamite. I can quote that. I'm a big fan of just, watching. And you would think, my daughter was born on December 2nd. So, gosh, it's Christmas time. How can you ever move forward and have a good Christmas? Well, in my office, I have a television. I'm there by myself, the whole day. Once Christmas hits, I'm watching Elf, and then I have The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and then I'm, Christmas Vacation and Fred
Favorite
Claus, and and so I'm just watching them on repeat to the point where I can just, throw out like, my kid asks me a question and I'll be like, I don't know, Margot, just kind of like doing. So, and, I also find that doing things that give me joy. Like I've always loved sports, and here I am coaching now. I'm an assistant coach for the Seton Girls varsity soccer, and the coach is much younger than I am, and so I feel like I'm like this grandma that brings in all the energy.
Who's the coach there now?
Ariel Maston.
Okay.
So
is Donna's daughter?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so she's much younger than I am, and I have all these girls, and I go in there and I'm like, you can just, they're teenage girls and they're having some struggles. And so I come in and, I start singing Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. And
one of my favorite Queen songs too.
Yeah. I'm like, and, I sing Proud Mary by, with Tina
CCR?
Turner. No, Tina Turner version.
Oh, okay.
Tina Turner. Yeah.
Wasn't that originally by CCR?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was not originally by Tina Turner. But
okay.
No,
it's fine. Right.
Yeah. And, just, to the point where they're like, we had just like won a game and like, Coach, what song's in your head? And, it had been raining all day. So I was like, the Eurythmics, Here Comes the Rain Again. But then, you have the girls are like, oh, we've got songs. And they start singing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, we're having fun. And, we just lost and we're singing a song that just reflects what we're going through. And it's like, it's connecting. Like, it's all connection, right? Mm-hmm. We're all human beings, and we all desire a connection on a really deep level. And I do that a lot through humor. I I make a lot of jokes at my own expense, and you know, I'm really goofy, and that's how I get through the days.
What about, like you said, your husband, your daughter, your immediate family, like pretty easygoing, kind of fun people?
Yeah, they are. I have 2 daughters. I actually now have a Julia who will be 11 in January, and then I have my Anastasia. Well, she prefers Annie. She'll be 14 in February. Yeah, they're all really, you know. One thing that I learned about when we went through the loss of Grace was like the first thing that I was taught was you can't control each other's grieving. So I always kind of stepped away from, like, I only ever focused on my own grief. Mm-hmm. And so that's always been on my husband's shoulder. Like, he has to handle his grief and I've got to handle mine. So, you know, we don't really get into a lot of discussion about that. But we do talk about Grace a lot, and we do, as if she's sitting there. My 10-year-old, she was 4 or 5 years old. She was like, "Mom, how old would Grace be?" It was leading up to her birthday, and I was like, "Oh, she's gonna be 11 this year." And she's like, "Oh, Mom, she's almost a teenager. She can do whatever she wants." And I was like, "Hold up, whoa, like." In heaven, on earth, teenagers do not get to do whatever.
You're still the
they
mom,
want.
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
like they don't get to do whatever you want. So don't you think when you get to be a teenager that you're gonna do whatever you want? But yeah, they're fun kids. They love, you know, Julia's a big Taylor Swift fan, so we sit and watch Taylor Swift videos at night together.
in the box seats at a Chief game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's watch this. We'll watch the game.
I'm actually feeling a little bitter right now because the Chiefs have lost the last 2 games, and she's been at both of them. So I'm almost tempted to be like, stay home, Taylor.
We can go into football, but the last play where Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Taylor Kelce,
oh my gosh. Travis Kelce. Yeah.
I watched. That was a bad slip, but so I'm like, Taylor. I'm like, no. But when Travis like basically passed the ball back and he ran for a touchdown, and then you looked and I'm like, I don't know if he's a rookie receiver. I'm like,
he is not.
I'm like, bro, you are 2 feet in front of the football.
He looked at the ball.
He was looking at the ball the whole time, and I'm like, dude, that's like modified. Like, which I hate to pin it on one person, but I'm like, that's not even like a hard call. And the announcers were like, hey, you know, that's oftentimes not called. It's not that big of a deal. But this guy is like 2 feet across the line. It was like to the point where I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, you aren't even close. Your back foot's barely behind the line.
It's not his first mistake this season. And I got to say, I did not appreciate how the Chiefs reacted either. I'm a big Pat Mahomes fan, and I love Travis Kelce, but I felt like they went after the refs after the game, and I was like, really not the refs. Like, this is the receiver, Tony's fault completely. This is like fundamental football.
It's like if you were, you know, when like people get a rebound in basketball and they kind of like sloppily go out of bounds and they pass it in. Like majority of the time they're not 2 feet out of bounds like you learned as a kid. And no ref calls it because they're like, whatever, it's not even that big of a deal. Nobody cares. And that's kind of what this should have been like. But it was almost like the person like inbounded it, standing in bounds, and just passed it. Like, no, that's like you can't do that. Like that's just, it was almost to the point where I'm like, it's so bad.
It was.
But sorry, we'll keep going. But that was just recently. But the play by, I mean, the like lateral pass back, I thought was great.
Oh my gosh,
like, the whole play was good. I mean,
that was a Hall of Fame play. Like, it was an amazing play. Like, you know. It was just, I was so heartbroken when the flag and they came back, and I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I couldn't look at social media posts about the football game for like the first 24 hours afterwards, because I was just like, oh my gosh,
I have this problem every year. The Chiefs are the defending champions, right?
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Because I always forget. I'm like, who won last Super Bowl? And it took me a while. I'm like, they beat the Eagles. That was this past year. Okay. So I'm one, if like my team doesn't win, then I honestly forget who won this previous Super Bowl. But the Chiefs are 8-5 still, but they're behind the Dolphins. The Ravens are 10-3. They're the best, but
the Broncos have won their last 6 of 7 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they're only a game out. But
yeah, they weren't looking very good. We hate the Broncos.
Well, the thing is though, that, like the Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, you can even throw the Browns in there. mean, Jacksonville, that's a dumpster fire. AFC South, always terrible. But you look at that. I mean, you have like some very solid teams, like kind of culminating. I think in the playoffs, like it's fun when you get to like the, like the AFC championship game, the AFC like divisional playoffs. When you get into that weekend and like you have really, I mean, if you count the other side, you have like 8 really solid games. That's when I start to get excited because then you'll get the Ravens playing the Chiefs or something. There was a stat though, and we'll go back to we'll get off football here in a sec, but the stat was they said something along the lines of Patrick Mahomes may have to go away in a playoff game, which he's never done in his career.
Yeah.
Which is when I heard that stat, it was shocking to me.
Yeah.
But
he also has not lost back-to-back games ever in his career until Sunday.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he is.
I just when you look at the stat line, because you always think, I think at a point in time he was overshadowed by Tom Brady just because of Tom's name. It was like Tom, and Pat was great. He had all the stats and stuff. But then you had like the Aaron Rodgers, and you had all these other quarterbacks that were studs. But I think if you actually just laid everybody out, like laid all the stat lines down, you'd be like, Pat Mahomes is by far the best quarterback over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah,
and I don't even think it's close.
He is, and that's why it's when you have years like this year where I feel a little disappointed in what's kind of been.
But again, they're 8-5, which is still. I mean, they're still leading the division, which is wild. Which is not a bad thing. But I'm saying like their down year is still leading the division.
Yeah.
Because my team is sitting. I'm a Giants fan, lifelong Giants fan.
So is my father.
Yeah, 5-8. It's fine. I always say I'm like I got 3 Super Bowls in my lifetime with them. They're on a 3-game win streak, so
yeah.
It was very gloomy 3 weeks ago, but
they actually beat the Pack last night. So
we're rolling. We're doing whatever we can. But sorry, I'll get off of football. Just my my team is horrible. I do like the Chiefs, so I love Andy Reid, even though Andy coached Philly for many years and I hated Philadelphia, but he was always like they won, and I think he's a class act, so he's a good dude.
Yeah.
So I guess coming back, we'll go back into football after. I promise. We'll go into coaching and all the football stuff, but so a couple questions I guess off of that is we were talking about before. Do you find in this having you talk about this to me seems like probably the best thing you can do is that when you still talk about Grace like actively, like how old is she going to be? Like there's her birthday, like. Yeah. But I almost feel like I think people deal with grief in different ways. Like we have, I think of family members and stuff. We still like my grandfather passed away a couple years ago, and very. Like a lot of memories and, obviously one of my favorite humans ever. But you still, it's almost like he's passed, but you still acknowledge, like, you see videos, you see like, oh, that just like, it sounds like him. Like, or he did this or he did that. Right. And it's like, it's almost like that has never like physically he's left us, but like all the memories and all his mannerisms and things like it's still there. So I feel like the way we even talk about him, we would still like, I feel like we still talk about him as if we were talking and he's like at his house.
Absolutely.
But I feel like that was a tough one for me just because I just grew. I mean, he passed a couple years ago. I was in my 30s when he passed, so I have very great memories of him. So do you find that has been an important thing for you guys?
Absolutely.
Or is that something you set out to do intentionally, or is that just kind of manifested over time?
I think that manifested over time. I think that for me, acknowledging, talking, because I think one, I'm a talker. I like to talk, but I also feel like when I talk about Grace, when I talk about the stuff that I've gone through, there is healing in that. Every time I share her story, I'm sharing her life with somebody. Mm-hmm. She existed, and so we also, I believe it's David Kessler, who's this author and grief expert. He says when a loved one dies, that physical relationship is over, but the relationship's not over. Mm-hmm. We still have love, and we still have this love for that person, that baby, that being. And so it's so important for us to talk about those types of things. Holding things in is really not good for me. Like if I hold something in, I'm going to feel it in my body. My body's going to shut down. If I talk about what's going on, if I talk about, a memory with Grace, or if I talk about, when we moved back in 2010, it was July, the following May, my grandmother passed away in May of 2011. And, I live in her house. She had a baby die of anencephaly in 1951. I called her Ma. I mean, she was just really connected to her. And whenever I talk about Grace, it's almost like she's kind of in the conversation too. And it's just like, I just feel like that keeps them with me, right? I just feel like, I think about Harry Potter. And when Harry Potter's fighting Voldemort, and he's got his parents and Dumbledore are like watching over him, and they're just kind of like they're kind of helping him. I feel like that's how my loved ones are. Like I feel like Grace is there. I've got my grandmother, my grandfather, and both my grandmothers, my grandfathers, and then I've got my Uncle Chris. My Uncle Chris died in 2020 of ALS, and I just feel like they're like my witnesses. They're like, I carry them with me. And it creates this legacy of them. Like if I believe they're going to be there, and it's for me, I believe they're there to support me, and they're going to kind of be with me in all I do. And that's how I find, one, to keep their memory alive, two, to find healing, and three, to let my kids know that it's okay to talk about all this stuff, right? I mean, how often do I think no fault to my family or anything, but I mean, I was a child of the 80s. We weren't sitting around talking about stuff like this, right? Yeah. And I think one of the best ways to kind of have a good and if something were to come up, like with my daughter, and she's like 20 years old and she's having a mental health issue, like she knows she can talk about it, like, or she's having grief, or she's having anything, like, talk about it. Like, don't hold it in. We hold things in and we create shame. We create, things that can go sideways. Always best to get it out. And also, it's the best way to, I think finding ways to continue their memory, because it keeps them alive. Like for me, this organization, one of the things I always say is that Grace is the breath and the life of this organization. She is, when you walk into my office, the first thing you see is the tree of life. And, the walls are yellow. And you're going to walk into an organization that does not, it's not gloomy. It's not dark. We have dark feelings. All of those dark feelings are okay. And I'm here to be an example of light after that.
Do you feel, as like you said, I agree. I think just talking and keeping, and especially like you said, your daughters, like referring to Grace, my older sister, whatever they want to, however they refer to her as, it's I think it's one that now it's gone a generation. It will go another generation. Like they have children, they'll talk about Grace to them, and then it goes into the next generation. And then I think if you look at, do you feel, when we talk about like Grace is the lifeblood and kind of the person behind it, and we talk about the book with the calling and everything like that, do you feel that, because I mean, as a parent, like when you have I say this to moms and dads, I think I tell my wife, I said she's got the hardest job ever, which is mom, which I think dad's hard, but mom is 10 times harder. And I feel that like once you have kids, you put you become more selfless. You give more up for your children. You sacrifice more. And do you find, even though like that Grace is like, this is your way of serving Grace, where it's kind of like almost full circle. Like she was here on her, 14th birthday, you're probably, you're dealing with teenager stuff, or 15. 15. Yeah. So you're dealing with teenager stuff. But instead, it's like, well, I'm not dealing with teenager stuff, but she's making me run this business or something like that. Where it's like, it's still kind of like a fun.
I never thought about it that way, but spin. Sure. I never even thought about it that way. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, she's a headache in another way, right?
Yeah, but it's almost like, hey, mom, like this thing's like a
Challenging,
cool thing, but you're gonna run it, and you're gonna have the
Right.
sleepless nights, and you're gonna, you're gonna figure out like bookkeeping and accounting and all those fun things and legal that nobody wants to talk about with businesses.
Absolutely.
But I feel like it almost comes full circle. It's like, well, I'm not doing the stuff I'm doing for Annie, but I'm doing this for you, and you're a pain in the butt teenager just like your sister. And I think, but if you kind of put, I
It
feel
puts
like
a realness to it, for sure.
But I feel like to me, that's, having you talk about it and hearing things, like I feel like that's how she's just living in a different frame, like
Absolutely,
through you, through a
100%.
business, but it's helping people. And it's like, physically she can't help, but she can help, whether it's just your internal drive, whether memory, but your drive to keep that alive. Like she's sparking something to make this happen.
Absolutely.
So it's funny, when you start, and I don't know anything about, I think as I've gotten older, I've, tried to cope more with like life and death and kind of, as things work, and you kind of try your own ways to kind of understand it all. Not like the meaning of life, but just the idea of like, okay, like, is there afterlife? Is there not afterlife? If, you have kids now, which is different. And I find like, it's a lot of, it's kind of like you said, your mission or what you're working on, or, someone like this who's still part of your life that's driving some kind of force. And then I think there's so much interconnectedness that, like, obviously it's tough to understand like the afterlife, but I agree there's times, like, whether it's like, call it sixth sense, whatever you call it, guardian angel, whatever you use as a terminology. And that's why when people start getting into, afterlife and things, like I've always gone to the idea of like, yes, there's things that are hard to explain and maybe we can't explain scientifically. But then when you hear of like science and religion, I always think there's like a blend of the two, that they're not as black and white as you think. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you take the scientific aspect of like, life, death kind of thing, and then you put it with like the afterlife of, is it real or not? And I think you had wrote this in here of like reason or ways that, I forgot how you worded it, but just kind of stories of evidence that my daughter's with me. If you don't mind sharing some of those, but do you find, that there's some stuff where like, I can't explain it, but she was 100% on my shoulder, or 100% driving that situation, or, cause I feel there's times where just like, I'll put an example. My grandfather, who's, like I said, passed away, passed away on my birthday. I'm born on Christmas Eve. So it's right before Christmas. So, Christmas passes away, Christmas Eve, and I won't go into all. I mean, it was a very peaceful death, but I won't go into all the details. But it was like almost like a perfect scenario to pass. Like you couldn't have scripted it any better. And I kind of like, not that I don't want to pass, but if you had to pass in any other day, like my birthday's great because it's kind of like
a connection.
It's a connection, but the next morning we go up and we're going to family Christmas, and it's not. I mean, he lived not far away, so like it wasn't. And it was tough. It wasn't very like grieving. It was just kind of like you were still kind of like weighing it because it only happened like 12 hours earlier because he passed in the evening. But I get in the car, got the kids, put on the Christmas music. The first song that comes on is a Christmas song about his hometown. It's one of my all-time favorite Christmas songs, and I have yet to hear it on the radio since. The only time I've probably heard it on the radio without like looking, like going on like Apple or Spotify to listen to it. It's the only time I've heard it on the radio since I was a kid. It was the first song I heard the next morning, which it still gets me kind of choked up thinking about it. But it was like,
what song is it?
Christmas in Killarney, which is an Irish song. He's from
yeah,
Killarney. He was born and raised there, came over from Ireland.
Right.
So he, but it was a song that even to this day I've yet to hear on the radio, and it literally was the first song I heard when I got in, and it was just like one of those moments where you're like, okay, that was like felt more than a coincidence. And I haven't heard it since, and it was like, but it was almost, it felt to me kind of like oh, I'm good, like enjoy Christmas. It was his favorite holiday. So that's stuff that sticks with me, but that's like an example where I'm like that was just like a symbolic thing of, it's kind of like what I needed to hear that day, and like I said, it was like a grief thing, but also I kind of look at it and I'm like, of course I would play, like, of course, like, just like the jolly Irish
Absolutely.
Christmas. And like, I just, it was great. So, but that's how I feel like I know this is like long winded, but that's how I feel like there's a connection where if you look at stuff things happen that are just like unexplainable, and you're like, you want to have a reason behind it, and sometimes you just have to let it go and be like, you know what, I can't explain it, and I don't want to. I don't really care. It just happened, and whether or not that was just a thing that hit me like mentally, or like you said, mentally, physically, it had meaning to me. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was nothing more than a coincidence. But I also can take that and spin it however I want. And for me, it was like help with the grief. Yeah. And it was literally the point where I'm like, you know what? And as soon as I heard it, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I kind of laughed and I was like, and just kind of did the opposite. But it just, it was a pretty powerful moment for me. And, but I guess regarding how have you, because you mentioned that, but like, have you seen that just with Grace or with others or things where you're like, there's no doubt in my mind, she's like right over me.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to say the reason why and the explanation of why really doesn't matter, right? What really matters is what you feel in that moment and what you feel moving forward. Because if we can kill ourselves trying to figure out or try and explain away things. But if it comforts you and it makes you feel like you're connected to your grandfather, then that's all that matters. That's the key to there. And that's a great, I love that song. I actually do know that song.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's a deep cut. So
yeah, definitely.
It's a deep cut. Yep.
So I over the years, I have definitely had moments like I could say, yep, I am being held, or she's there with me. Even with my grandmother, like I said, I live in my grandmother's home. And we moved in about a month or a little over a month after she died. And I'm in the shower. My husband is in the bedroom, and I'm not hearing like my name getting yelled out. And I was like, I'll be there in a minute. And I thought like my aunts had walked in. And my husband heard the yelling of my name. There wasn't a single person in my house at that time. So never happened again, but I just felt like that was my grandmother, like kind of welcoming me into her home that she lived in for 65 years. And then along with my daughter, I talked to my daughter a lot. Like I live in Lion Mountain. And my life is in Plattsburgh, so it's a 30 to 45 minute drive anywhere I want to go. And so I spend a lot of time in the car, and I talk to Grace a lot. Mm-hmm. I'll be like, hey, Grace, you know what? For example, a year or two ago, I organized a little walk around the Oval with a bunch of moms of loss. And I was driving in, and I was driving by myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous. I'm always nervous when I do things like that. And I'm like, all right, Grace, your mom really needs a sign. I could totally use a sign this morning that I'm doing something right. And so I get to the Oval, and there's a group of us in a circle talking, introducing ourselves. And this butterfly flies over my shoulder and flutters around my face, almost lands on my nose, and but hangs out for about a minute in my face, and then goes off. And I was just like, it was just really like, I don't think that's ever happened again. I know definitely not landing on my nose type thing, getting so close it was about to land on my nose. I definitely feel like that was a moment. Like there was like, hey, here I am. You're doing right. And then there was one other time. Well, there's been a few times, but there's this other time that's really interesting. So I live in Lion Mountain. And in my backyard is the Big Ball Diamond. Are you familiar with the Big Ball Diamond? Yep. So there's a lot of ore sand back there, and I was in the backyard, and I was talking to my daughter, kind of having a moment, and it was warm, and there was no clouds in the sky. There wasn't a whole lot of wind, and I start walking back towards my house, and I hear some noise. It was like this crackling noise. It was loud, and I turned to look. There was nothing there. And I continue to walk a little bit, and I hear it again. It was this crackling, rustling sound. I turn. There's nothing there. So I get almost to my house, and I was like turned around to look, and there was this dust devil, which they're called, but there was there was this tornado that stood as tall as my house of sand and leaves and debris coming at me at my house, came across the backyard, across the alley towards my house, got to my house, and then was gone. And
Wow.
there was not a cloud in the sky. The wind, there was no wind except at that point with the dust.
Yeah, that's wow.
So I don't know. Never happened again. I don't know. I've been going there since I don't know. I was born in '76. I've been going there a lot of years. I never even heard of that happening or ever seeing something like that happen at my grandparents' house.
I think there's something to all that. Like I just
Yeah.
it's just these signs. But I said there's stuff that just catch you off guard. Where you're like, I'm not even trying to make this happen. This is like too obvious. I'm like, this is just weird. Like weird, but you're just like, how did this happen? And
I mean,
that's,
yeah. I mean, then there's the things like, at 7:56 in the morning, I'm driving into work and White Christmas comes on the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, that you look at, it's like the timing and the clock. I mean, there's just things like that. Like, you just have to think that there's little signs of us, And I was actually just having this conversation. We just had a moms group on this past Saturday, and we were just talking about this. This is, a lot. We talk about it a lot, and just finding signs that they're there. I work for a psychiatrist in Kansas City. His name is Dr. Kevin Mays, and he's kind of been a mentor of mine. And his daughter was brutally murdered by his son, and he was in a psychotic break. It was horrible. It was just absolute horrible. And so Lainey had died, and they were in it was a crime scene in the house, and the police had let the family into the house to get some of Lainey's stuff to get together to for the funeral. And Lainey was an equestrian. She was in the equestrian at K-State out in Manhattan, Kansas, and they wanted her riding shoes. And they had gone through the whole house. Dr. Mays, his wife, his sister, they had gone through the whole house. They couldn't find Lainey's riding shoes. And so his sister, Dr. Mays' sister, was like, all right, Lainey, we need your riding shoes. We need them now. So they just yelled it out. So then they go back to this closet they had already gone to, and sitting dead center in the middle of the closet were the riding shoes.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean,
Yeah.
I get goosebumps. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has a different take on those things, but to me, that's just, and at that moment, Dr. Mays told me that he knew that she was okay. Mm-hmm. Like he just knew, like, she's okay.
Yeah. I think, and like I said, back to my grandfather, and the dust storm and the late butterfly. Like I think, there's a level, like, to me, there's just a level of comfort. Even hearing those stories, and I don't, like I said, never met Grace, never met the Laney girl, but like you have a comfort level of like it feels like there's at least some type of communication to the family, like you said, and however that's taken. I mean, I'm not I have some friends that are like big medium people, like, and all that, and I'm like, I'm sure there's something to it, which I have nothing against it, but I'm not one like go seek it out. Like I'm like, I'm good.
I have a medium story.
Okay, so I'll have you tell it. But, like, maybe that's something down the road I want to do, but I don't discount that there's like a lot of connections. I don't discount that there's something to it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's more around us, and that's why I go back to, and I know this is just like my overthinking, like nerdy mind, but I feel like there's so much connection, I think, between life and death that we really don't understand yet. And we understand more than we did, 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years ago. Right. Or maybe, and sometimes maybe have slipped away from some stuff they probably had better understanding of years ago. But I feel like there's, over time, I think we'll start to understand more of that kind of transition period. But I feel like there's more interconnectedness than like, okay, you pass and you're done. Like there's nothing else, like your physical body. But I believe in like science stuff, like energy and body, and like how you decompose. And like I think there's still a lot to it that we don't know yet, and it's fascinating, but also gives me the idea of there's like a level of hope. And not that I'm, thank God I haven't had much of it, but I feel if there was to have like a traumatic event, I'm almost like I think trying to train myself of like potentially how to think or deal with it should it come. Obviously, I don't know. It's like, quote, like everybody's got a Mike Tyson, like everybody's got a game plan so they get punched in the face. It's kind of like that, but it's the idea of I'm hoping that I can kind of come to terms with at least some of the aspects of it, and then if something were to happen, God forbid, that would be maybe something I could lean on as kind of like a prep for it, which I don't know if it's the case, but that's like what goes through my head in like weird scenarios. But like, again, I think it's just trying more to just have a little bit more like be more cognizant of that, of that just in life. But you can do in your median story.
Sure. I think, I think we try and prepare ourselves for a lot of things like that, but I think ultimately it's never really helps.
Yeah. Well, I think
it doesn't. It helps, but I think it does. There's. I think having that belief that there is something there is going to help. Yeah. Right. I think that creates a pathway to.
I think it's like Mike Tyson. You get punched in the face, and you're like, "What the heck happened?" Like, which, again, hopefully never happens. I mean, It will at some point in my life, but hopefully it's not. Yeah. But
I've never been to a medium. A little skeptical myself.
Okay.
Now that I have this organization and I've there's been a few, I'm a little more skeptical to do it locally. Like I would love to do it anonymously if I did it. That being said, last year I got a message from my cousin on Facebook Messenger. Now I think I've seen my cousin. She lives in Granville, which is just outside of Queensbury, down Queensbury area, and on Vermont border, and maybe seen her one or two times since my grandmother passed in 2011. Basically, any kind of real talking or conversations, maybe some messages on Facebook, but very little conversation. So out of the blue, I get a message, and she's like, I need to tell you something. I went to a medium, and the medium told me told me that our grandmother wanted to.
This is the lady you live in the house now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the medium told my cousin that my grandmother's coming. Our shared grandmother. Our grandmother is coming through, and that she has a message for me, Sarah, mm-hmm. that she has grace and that she knows what I'm doing and to keep doing it. Now, I don't know who this medium was. I don't know where she went to do this. Mm-hmm. And I think I've talked to her one time since that conversation with the message. So I don't know if it, like, the message was for me, for her. Like, she went to the medium and got a message for me. It just seemed really kind of coincidental, but I just, it didn't really matter because it really just helped me, right? It helped me in the moment. So it's just interesting that, she's 2.5 hours away going to a medium, and this medium is like giving her information about me.
So like median, I've never gone to an official one. I remember back in high school, it might have been like one of those after prom things. And they had like a psychic, I guess kind of the same. I don't know. They're like whatever the terminology is, but there's a psychic. And I remember sitting there, and at the time, I was with the girl I went to prom with was a girl I was dating. And I remember sitting there and, we're next to each other and we're talking. And it's like, I'm sure pretty obvious that we're a couple, like not like just random people sitting on a couch. So then we went and talked to her, and it was like very vague stuff. And it was like stuff where I'm like, I feel like you probably just pulled a bunch of stuff out based on the 5 minutes we were sitting on the couch waiting for the next person to leave.
Right.
So I was like, I'm like, that was like total crack of, it just wasn't worth it or whatever.
Right.
It wasn't very impressive. But then I've heard like people that are like legit mediums that I think like actually, don't do school gigs, that probably have a career in business and stuff. Right. And the person like, and I've heard some like crazy stuff where people have like out of the blue, like I went in, they have no clue besides what they could physically see of me. And they told me all this crazy stuff. And stuff. Some of the stuff too was specific enough where it wasn't just randomly like, oh, this male or female in your life, and then you're kind of like connecting the dots or trying to fill in the blanks. It was more of like, do you have this person that had like this or this? And you're like, yeah, that's kind of creepy. And I've heard that from people. So
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of validity to it for people that I think are legit. I think there's some money grabbers, but I think there's some legit people.
Well, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where my whole idea is like, I want to be anonymous. Like, I want to go in. I don't even want to give you my real name. I want to give you, like, I'm Betty. And now tell me who I am. Tell me who.
Betty, that's a good idea. Hey. See, that would be the most and maybe don't even see you, like
right.
Like I just like, give me my thing, but I don't know. I don't know how science of it works, whatever. But
right. I
do think there's some validity to it. So last questions I want to ask, and then I want to dive into some extracurricular stuff here. Going with what you've done so far, and what you've over the last, you said 4 years now, going on 5.
It's gonna be we're in our 4th year. Yeah,
it was 19. So
yeah, it was. Well, we were officially incorporated as a nonprofit in July of 2020.
Okay, so about 3.5. We're going. Yeah. So based on those, how? And I've asked some guests on this one. Like, you look back over those last 3.5 years. What has been the biggest accomplishment over that time where you're like, I'm extremely proud of myself or the team or the board of directors or whoever doing, and then maybe looking forward, kind of like what would be a vision that you'd hope to accomplish, or some like maybe some long-term goals you want to kind of build towards off of where you are now?
So I think, gosh, what am I most... there have been a lot of things that I am extremely proud of. I think, initiating the miscarriage kits and getting that off the ground, that was really big, and the champ boxes, and, doing the peer groups and things like that. And just keeping it afloat is like just growing that. But I think one of the things that hit me the strongest, going back to the children's grief totes, the grief bags, the comfort bags that I do. The past few months in our area, we've had significant amount of young lives lost. There was an 11-year-old in Peru, and then the young man in Chazy, and as well as Champlain. So we've been reaching out to the schools and trying to be a support to the area through that. And this past Saturday, I got a card, and it was a card from 2 siblings that had received a couple of these bags and what it meant to them to receive them. And I thought, I sat that moment right there, like I hadn't gotten something like that. Like I hadn't gotten, and not that I'm looking for that, but it was that moment where I opened that card and I'm reading these children's words of the impact. They had lost their mom in August. And it was like, this is bigger than me. This is why we're here, right? This is what I want to do. I want that impact. I want to help people get to where I'm at, right? I have found a way to live it, have the moments of dark, and then also have moments of light. And I want to be there so that other people can have that too. Mm-hmm. And how great is it to help a child? Like they just are so, they go through things so much differently than we do, and that sometimes feel so alone. And to make an impact like that was huge. I really, I shared it with Bodhi's mom because that's Bodhi's life too, right? Mm-hmm. This baby that died at 19 weeks is making an impact right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And so these things, these lives that we have in our they can continue to make impacts and continue to help people. So that was really big for me.
Well, I also think too, and this goes, you're dealing with a small business or nonprofit, something you started from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the hardest jobs is anybody that's like, I think, starting something from the ground up, whether it's business, nonprofit. I mean, they're all, I mean, it's a level of a lot of the same stuff. And there is, and I'm speaking from experience, but I'm sure having talked to many people in this position, I think it's a common thing. There's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of tough days. There's a lot of, days where you're like, you want to throw in the towel. Why am I doing this? I suck. I'm no good. Like, I think anybody who's ever started something, because it takes time to get traction, even you be as positive as you can be, you're going to doubt yourself, and you're going to, the first bout of criticism, you're going to say, I'm no good. I agree with the one person that voiced a negative opinion. Right. But I would say, what the two things that I've always felt like is like kind of internalizing why you do something. So really, like, other opinions don't matter in the long run. And for you, obviously, there's a major, reason why you do it. But I think that if then you do get the moments where someone does say, great job, or someone gives you a little bit of encouragement, or someone, like, just anything that's like a little bit of hope of like, maybe I'm not a total failure. And I think that, I think I've heard before, like, if for every person that says you're great, there's probably 100x, 1,000x people that would voice the same opinion that don't. So I think, and I've thought that before, where if I get a thank you card, if I get someone that does something nice, in my head I'm like, that was the only one I got, but it makes me think, based on a lot of things I've looked at, that there's probably more people that feel the same. So don't feel like you're useless, but I mean, it naturally, like, I don't say great job to a lot of people that I would love to say great job to. It's just, we're human. We just do whatever. So I think those two young children that said something to you, you could probably say, hey, I think everybody we touch would have this same sentiment, whether or not they sent a card, whether or not they reached
absolutely.
out. So I think a lot of it is even just, but that's like that's proof for you, where it's like, I have something tangible to read, where it's not really a belief. It's more of like, I can actually see it. Like, they wrote it, and that was really nice of them.
Absolutely.
I've saved almost every thank you card I've ever had in 15 years. Like, I've saved them all. And I think some of them is like days when you're like, I've done it before. I'm like, I suck. And I'll pull that down. I'll just flip through it, kind of like nostalgic. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember them from 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's a nice card. And that's a nice thing they said. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not that bad. Right. Even though you have that. So I think that's good someone voiced that to you, because it's tough, especially when you're starting something and you're in the first few years, and most things don't survive over a couple years. And the fact that you're like, okay, we're starting year 4, we're doing it. And whether or not that's, like I said, has come easy or come hard, or if it's like truly getting bossed around by grace, like, I feel like something's happening where it's like, we're just going to keep going, like one foot in front of the other. But it's nice to get that recognition, from time to time.
I think slow and steady, right? Like, I think, like, I thought I was hoping to get into this and, like I said, skyrocket to success, and just be like, everything was going to fall in my lap. And I think it has been such a struggle over the last 3.5 years and I think that's what's allowed me to have an idea that maybe we can be around for the duration. And I'm my worst critic, and I have conversations in my head all the time. Like, I if you see me in public and my mouth is going and no one around me, just know I am losing the argument.
I've never heard that before. That's good.
There's no way I can win, because on this, I just go back and forth, and I am constantly putting myself down, and like, it's just a horrible thing. And anyway, yeah, I've had some weird looks in the grocery store for sure. But yeah, it is good to get that card from.
I heard a thing recently, and I've like it was just very simply put, but it's like, it's impactful, but it's also like those tough days. They said you can't lose. The only way you can lose is if you quit. So it's like, if you just don't quit, you're not going to lose, because you just constantly.
Wasn't it Michael Jordan that said you miss 100% of the shots?
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky.
Actually, Michael Scott said it. But
Michael Scott said it.
Do you watch The Office?
Yes.
It's actually, I'll show you before you leave. It's a poster on my wall. It's a picture of
my
Michael.
God, I thought it was. Yeah.
It's a poster of him like leaning down, and behind him is a whiteboard that says, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Wayne Gretzky, quote Michael Scott. Yeah. So he was quoting a quote. It's great.
So that's where I'm getting. I must have got it from watching the show.
Yeah. I swear it's in my office. I'll have you see it
awesome.
before you leave. It's actually one of the only things hanging up in my office. And it really doesn't have to do with the actual quote. I'm just an Office fan, so I just like it. Just
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I love The Office.
So how long have you been coaching soccer?
This was my second year, so it was like, whoo, I missed this. I should have been doing this a lot longer.
Did you play soccer?
I did.
You play soccer, and did you go to college and play?
I played at Clinton a couple years. Actually, it was funny. So we were the first women's soccer team at Clinton to go to regionals.
Did Donna coach you?
Was not Donna at the time. I had Donna. So I played basketball at Clinton, and Elizabeth was my assistant coach. I think it was my freshman year.
Oh, Pearl?
Yeah, my second year freshman. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was a basketball player at St. Rose. Was it St. Rose did she go to? I'm pretty she played basketball.
I thought she went to Sage.
Was it something down there? It might be Sage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know she played basketball.
I can't remember who was I know one year my soccer coach. Oh, no. Donna was not my soccer coach at Clinton. One year we had different soccer coaches each year I played there. And it's a funny story. I don't know if you know Kelly Passano, but so I first time I meet her going in to get a massage, and I'm like, yeah, I played soccer. I don't know how we were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, we were the first team to go to the regionals. And she's like, yeah, we won the national championship. I was
One
like,
up.
and she was like MVP. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to shrink over here and hide.
What is it? You got to stand on the shoulder of giants or whatever to move and be like, I'm just the one you stood on. So like, you're welcome.
Exactly. We had to pave the way for you to get there, Kelly.
Like back in my day, we had to drive like cars to the game, like just like some outrageous thing where it's like, you guys got it good. Like you got a coach bus.
I had to walk from, up the hill through snow.
Both ways. So coming back to coaching though, was that something that you've always wanted to do? Did you have background in it? Was it just like, hey, this is an opportunity, be fun?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I have always wanted to do it. It kind of started. I started to think about it. I knew I didn't want to be a head coach.
Okay.
But my kids. Annie plays basketball, but she also does dance. Julia does gymnastics and dance. Neither of them are really sports inclined. I loved all the sports. I played softball straight up, I played through Clinton. So I played soccer, basketball, and softball at Clinton for 2 years. And so I've always loved sports. And so I guess a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was like, hey, if you need some help with the soccer team, I'm happy to do it. I would like to be a part of it, and just jumped in. And so this was my second year assisting, and I don't want to be a head coach. Mm-hmm. I have no desire to be a head coach. I like being the quirky old lady on the sideline. Like that's like I want to bring the energy.
I mean, not to say quirky old lady, but did you have Sharon Relation as a coach?
Sharon Relation was my gym teacher.
She wasn't your coach back in soccer?
No, my soccer coach, my varsity soccer coach was Jeff Passano.
Okay, I don't.
That was.
But so my wife played, and Sharon was the coach, but she was funny. But she's always joking around and having fun. I mean, now she's older. Back then she wasn't. But it was just anytime I think of that, I was like, see, and you must have had Sharon because she was just funny.
Yeah.
Anytime we see her, she's always just joking around and goofing. Gina loves her, so.
She was my gym teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had my varsity coach was Jeff Passano for soccer, and then my basketball coach was 1 year was Bruce Stevens, and the next year it was Sam Campbell. And And I it's funny, they were great coaches, and I don't know if I ever really thought about it at that time doing something like this, but because my kids don't play sports, I found this was like a way to get involved.
Is Mary Forbes still the AD?
She's a principal and an AD, yeah.
Okay.
And Ariel's the assistant AD.
Who's the head coach of soccer?
Yeah.
Does she work there?
Yeah, she's a math teacher in the high school.
Oh, okay, cool. So, and I was gonna say as an assist. So, I think I coached. I think it was 8 years. So this was like pre-kids. I got out when I got married and we were gonna have kids. I did 2 years of assisting on the varsity, same thing as you, and then I ended up getting asked to go down to do JV, like head coach of JV. And I remember I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like I don't want to. Like one, I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to deal with like parents. I don't want to deal with like everything. And then I ended up doing it for 6 years, and it just became natural. And I mean, again, if it wasn't for getting married and having kids, I would still love to coach. But I think there's a level of coaching that's fun because one, you're giving back to the kids, but you see the game in a totally different way from like a playing. And I also feel it allowed me when you talk about like I would say it actually like got me out of my shell from talking. Not that I have a problem talking, but it was like public speaking every day. And of course you're like dealing with like teenagers and but I feel like it allowed me to open up a little bit. I got more responsible. I got more like a leadership kind of like thrust in. Like these kids are like, I don't know what to do. And I just like making stuff. It's like parenting. You just make stuff up on the fly. I don't know. We're going to try this out. And my kids at some point will be like, Dad, you really didn't know anything. I'm like, I didn't. But
absolutely not.
Yeah,
Still don't.
Yeah, still. And it's probably worse when they're teenagers because they tell you don't know what you're doing. I hear.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I try. I was hoping that, maybe coaching, being an assistant varsity coach at Seton would get me some street cred with my kid, but that
Did they go to Seton?
They do.
Yeah.
She's in 8th grade and plays modified basketball, and then my Julia's in 5th grade. It didn't give me any street cred. I'm still, loser mom. So, but
No, that's fine. And you're known for your quiche.
Yeah. So starting.
I know we went really far. We went from soccer to quiche.
So
I like quiche
love
stuff.
to cook, right?
Yes.
I love to cook. I'm a big cook. I love doing it. My dad was a great cook. Kind of a family thing, but so I started making quiche, and it was just turned out really well. And then it's funny. I started this organization, and I was like, let's do a quiche fundraiser. I had done them previously for raising money for people. And I was like, okay, well, why don't I? So they were like, why don't we do a fundraiser for Healing Grace to do a quiche? I made 230 quiche in a day. And
were you making the crust?
No, we did not make that. We had the pre-bought crust,
which is still impressive. But I just wanted. I'm like,
but so
this lady might be super amazing.
And so I made 230. And so, anyways, I raised like $2,000. So then I go and I'm applying for a grant through the Cloud Splitter Foundation, and they're out of Saranac Lake, and I tell, she goes, what funding sources do you have? And we're like, well, we did a quiche sale. And she was like, you really need to kind of get some traditional funding type things going on. Like she couldn't believe like I did a quiche
couple grand in quiche. Yeah. How many eggs was that? Like, what was it, 200 and something? So how many eggs you put in each?
Each quiche, because it depends. When you buy the pre-made, shells, if you don't get the deep ones, you can only put like 2 eggs in it. But if you get the 9-inch the deeper ones, you can put 3 eggs in. So 3 eggs at 200.
650.
Yeah.
Divided by 12. I don't want to do the math, but that's a lot.
A lot of eggs. And thankfully, I was doing it, and my uncle had gotten Drew had donated all the eggs, so it was great.
Oh, Drew's?
Yeah, they donated.
Oh, that's nice.
Eggs. Yeah.
They have a handful there. Yeah. So I guess random thing because I do like quiche, but quiche. What is in a quiche, and what's your favorite type of quiche to make?
So my quiche is heavy cream, eggs, cheese, and then the secret ingredient, which won't be so secret, is nutmeg. And then I think my favorite. I typically, when I do a fundraiser, if I'm making a lot for people, I put ham and cheese is one. Then I'll do broccoli and cheese, and then I'll do broccoli, ham, and cheese. I've also put mushrooms and like sautéed onions, which is really good with some bacon. I love it all. I think I prefer the broccoli ham and cheese.
Okay.
To anything
I would.
else.
Okay, that would be your favorite.
Yeah.
The mushroom onion bacon one sounds good though.
Oh, that's really good.
Because I like cooked onions, not a big raw onion. I mean, I'll eat them, but I like and I really dislike raw mushrooms, but I love cooked mushrooms.
Oh yeah, these are it.
I mean, once they're cooked, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to use heavy cream. It's a must. It's a textural thing. It's like absolute mandatory.
Are you? Yeah. So here's people that skimp on recipes. Like if you're gonna do heavy cream, if you get a recipe and like I'm gonna use like milk instead of heavy cream, it's just different.
It's different,
and it's a different consistency. It tastes different when you're trying to make like the this is my. I got a pet peeve here. This is gonna be a soapbox moment. So if you're gonna when people have dessert and they try to like skimp on ingredients to make it quote unquote healthier, this is my opinion with this. If you're concerned that your dessert is not, you want to make your dessert healthier, you probably have a very poor nutritional balance of food. Where my thing is like, if you eat really well and you want dessert, then you should be in my opinion, and pre-kids, I was way more into nutrition and fitness and stuff, but I would eat really well. And if I was going to have any kind of dessert, I went full bore. I didn't care. I'm I want the toppings. I want the biggest size. It doesn't matter, because I think at that point, it's if you're going to have a dessert, have a dessert. Don't again, don't dip your toe in the water in dessert.
Right.
Same with the quiche. If you're going to have a quiche, eat a good quiche.
Right.
And
absolutely.
So I've always gone with the idea heavy cream, cheese, butter, you need it and it's going to make it taste better, which they do, because that's the whole purpose of them.
Right.
It elevates it.
Absolutely.
Have you ever put heavy cream in coffee?
I have.
That's one of my favorite things.
Or light cream. I've done both, but typically I've done the heavy cream, but that's
Do you drink a lot of coffee?
I drink a lot of coffee.
Okay. So what's your normal way of taking coffee?
Well, sometimes I'll do half and half with a little sugar. Okay. Sometimes I'll do just some sweet cream, but yeah. That's what I do. I really like. I like a good latte, but when I'm drinking and working at the drinking coffee at my office, it's typically just really basic.
But heavy cream to me is if I get a heavy cream Americano with heavy cream is my go-to.
That's got to be a really rich cup of coffee.
It's amazing. But the thing is with an Americano, because it's espresso with basically espresso beans, whatever, a little bit of, it's basically espresso shots with hot water.
Right.
So there's actually less caffeine. And again, someone can fact check me on this. I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. There's less caffeine in that because it's more concentrated, because you're basically filtering it out. It's kind of like a coffee tea. And I like both. I like both of them. But I always put heavy cream in it. I used to get at Starbucks. It's really the only place that consistently carries heavy cream. And that one is not something I do every day. That's a treat. It's right now around Christmas time, if I'm to go around it, I'll be yeah, give me that. And some days where I'm just those days you're I just, screw it. I'm just going to get it because I just feel it's a day. And I'm some days I come into work. I'm just chilling at the office working on some stuff. I want to put on some music. I want to be in my own zone. And then I stop there as a treat because it's just something. Good.
Yeah.
Usually I'm black coffee. I drink every day, straight black. I don't put anything in it. Same grandfather I told you about before told me when I was 13, 14, when I started to drink coffee once a week at the diner. He told me, don't put sugar in it, it'll kill you. Literally told me that when I was a teenager. And I was okay. I've come to find out after the fact, my mom and my grandma were both he put sugar in his tea. But I never put sugar in my coffee. And I think to this day, I've never voluntarily put sugar in my coffee. Meaning, someone screwed up my order, and I'm ugh. And usually if it's sweet, I don't like drinking it. But the heavy cream is there's no sugar, but it adds the fat flavoring.
Right.
So it's good. So it's something to try.
I'll have to try it. I used to be a ton of sugar. I have cut back on my sweetened sweetener in the coffee itself, but I still like it a little sweet.
It's all good.
Yeah. My favorite right now. I've always been a fan of the pumpkin spice latte, which everybody's oh,
basic, but that's all right.
Right. But I love a good gingerbread. I've hopped onto
Okay.
that. I like it. And then chapter 1 right now has an eggnog latte that I
Okay.
just tried for the first time.
Is that pretty rich though? Eggnog?
The eggnog, yeah,
Or
it
just
was
more the
really
flavor?
good. It was really good. I don't know if they actually. I think it's actually
They do a really
like-
good job.
They do. It was a really good latte.
I
the
usually
other night.
get just the pour over there, a black pour over.
Yeah.
I always say it puts hair in your chest because it's just like it hits you, but it's good. Like I love it. They do a good job. All right, and if there's anything else, I really just wanted to ask you about the quiche because like nobody's ever said I'm known for my quiche. I love it though.
Well, there's a woman that lives in Lion Mountain, and she'll be like, she'll buy like a bunch of them, and then she'll like run out of them. She'll be like, can you make me some more quiche? And then I've had people who are like, can I have your recipe? And I'm like, I'll give it to them. They're like, oh, we just can't get it like you do. And I was like, it's just the love that I put into it.
Sometimes it just hits different. I don't know what it is. If it's like the water or if it's like the actual stove, but it does actually matter. So
It does.
Sarah, we're gonna wrap it up there. But last thing I want you to do, if anybody's looking to, can anybody help you out, donate, any events coming up, anything you want to plug before you leave?
So yes, if anybody wants to make a donation to Healing Grace, supporting our programming, they can go to our website. I think it's healinggraceph.org/donate. The money goes through all the programming. It's all local. And we also are collecting items for our Bodhi's Toadies, which I believe you can find a list of what's in a Bodhi's Toady on our website. If not, it should be there soon. I think on services it's there.
Oh, services. I'm sorry, I'm under shop.
No,
Dinner shop?
no.
Okay, like Christmas
you could
ornaments
buy.
and
You
stuff?
could buy. Yeah, we have that option if people wanted to order stuff on our shop. Not a lot of people have done that, but if you go under services, it gives a list of so if anybody needs any help or would like some support, they can definitely reach out to me and go to contact, and there's
Comfort cups.
yeah all the sorts of things we do. So
All right.
and a way to contact us is on our site too.
No, this is good.
Yeah.
I appreciate this, Sarah.
Thanks.
And I like I said, it was something that I looked at and I was like, you know what, this is like out of my wheelhouse for sure, but in a good way, meaning I like to talk to people in topics that I don't ever talk about.
And I hope that I provided an opportunity and it put it out there that yes, we talk about an extremely heavy topic, but I am anything but heavy. Like I want to be a light. Like I want to acknowledge the heavy, but also be a light.
Yeah, I think if you act like this with other people, which I'm sure you're even more outgoing and crazy with your group, that I think it would be good. But we'll put some stuff in the show notes. Again, healinggraceph.org. There's a couple sites. Donate's right at the top, so you guys just / to donate. But Sarah, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
Rachel,
thank you.
shout out. Great
you,
recommendation.
Rachel.
And cool. One there. That is episode 253 of The Galen Trombley Show. Thank you for listening to The Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on all social platforms at Galen Trombley. Thanks for listening.